Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Expanse, Season 6, Episode 4. It's called Redoubt. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. Or maybe it's Redoubt. It's actually...
I'd have gone with the latter.
Would you? Well, see, I don't know, because I go to say it, and I feel like Redoubt just sounds better, but like because it is spelled with the B, like doubt.
Yeah, I'd have gone with Redoubt.
You don't want to read out. That's saying read out, as in like reading something out. That.
What you're saying is it needs a hyphen.
Aye, I think a hyphen would be grand there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we're a little bit later with this episode this week. There was medical reasons.
There was.
The episode starts, as it has done, with the plot on the planet with the little girl. And her brother looks seemingly is dead, and it was hit by not a car per se, but like, whatever they're driving around in, little buggies, the space buggies, whatever they're using, little rovers. And what's interesting, obviously the scene ends with her like taking the body, and it is not carrying it like I was hoping for the action movie carrying it. It was more of a
from this small child.
Well, yeah, but her brother's even smaller.
Yeah, but still,
it ended up being a bit more like Steven Seagal's hit film Hard to Kill, when he's in the hospital and he's like sneaking around on the stretcher on the hospital bed. He's like sort of like trying to get away from bad guys on that. Anyway, just to compare it to an action movie as best I can. But the bulk of this was actually though a conversation she has with the Admiral who's there, who comes to see. It's like a wake happening for the boy.
Which I'm just going to say, right, so obviously we spoke a lot last episode about there maybe being more coming after the show ends.
Yes.
I am now, I've gone from like, I'm 70% sure to 90, because this Admiral, the only other thing I know about the upcoming books, other than there's a time jump, and I know this just from following the Twitter account of the writers, and they tweet, not spoilery things, but just names, right? The name of this Admiral, Duarte, I think is called, is a major character in the next 3 books.
Interesting.
So this feels like surely this is setting something up now.
I mean, I had that feeling last episode, and
even more now that you're introducing a character that I know is kind of
I didn't even know that, but even without that knowledge, like the way they're continuing to sort of teasing what they're doing on this planet and what's going on up above, and there's some intrigue being built, it feels like set up rather than... It
does, and in the first episode or 2, it's harder to tell, but now at this point, the pacing of it, there's only 2 of these left. It's clearly not building to anything major for just this.
If you remember, I theorized that maybe the stuff on the planet was set further ahead in time. You telling me that this character who's here that we're talking to in this episode is a feature of the books after the time jump suggests that maybe there is some credence to that possibility. Like, that could be a reveal.
It could be, or alternatively, again, because I have no context for this character, it could be this could be backstory.
Yeah, he could just be older and the rest, but I'm saying that the way this is so separate from everything, even though the planet is in some way being mentioned because it's where the weapon / ship that Anaros has got getting built is near, the actual stuff on the planet still feels so separate that they could swerve us and say, oh, this is actually 30 years or whatever in the future.
They could, yeah.
That said, though, if it isn't, and we have the time jump, then this little girl could be like, 30, 35 in a potential follow-up. So that could be very important as well. Could also be a very valid thing to do. And if she does somehow successfully reanimate her dead brother, then maybe he'll also be a character in whatever.
I have to imagine we'll find out if that works or not in the next episode or 2.
Well, there's 2 left. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're going to find it in the next 1 or 2. I don't know if it'll be in the next one or if they'll save that for the last one. Was kind of what I was saying there.
Yeah, but I mean, that was not even a prediction. It's in the next 1 or 2. There's only 2 left. It's either 1 or 2. You're basically covering your bases. You're saying
it wasn't really supposed to be a prediction.
You're saying every possibility imaginable. That's the only thing that's left.
Well, that's not true. The third possibility is we don't find out.
Okay, there's 3 possibilities, and you have covered your bases by incorporating two of them into your prediction.
It was not a prediction. It was just a statement. It was throwing out a thought.
It was a stupid statement. So, yes. But anyway, so this conversation, though, it's basically, it's him, he's trying to comfort her a little bit and talking to her about loss and death and eventually sacrifice, and tries to sort of talk about how he lost something. And at first I was thinking, is he referring to a specific thing that we know about? But it kind of became clear that he was talking more about the idea of Mars as a whole, and the idea that he lost Mars is this thing that he was fighting for, the future of Mars, and because they have separated and they've went on to have a new dream, and they're going to build this new home, or possibly even try and take whatever they learn and resources back to Mars to establish that goal. But it did sound like he's sort of given up on that, just given the way he was talking about.
I think it was that it's kind of been given up on, and I don't think it's him personally, but this was something that happened a lot when the ring opened and it was like, there's all these worlds. It was kind of, why bother putting all this effort into Mars anymore? We can just go to somewhere else that's ready-made.
I think what caught my ear more than anything in this little conversation, which I thought was interesting that she ended up comforting him more by the end of it. Mm-hmm. But the thing that caught my ear was when he said, we rushed out through those rings just like your brother rushed out onto that road. And there was no one to, take care of him, and now there's no one to take care of us. And he says that he's going to try, but it does certainly, and I guess if we're talking about stuff that feels like it's setting up stuff that's not going to really be in the show that we've got left, that statement felt like a big idea. We're out here in the wild, we're out here in this new frontier, and he's talking about the dangers of being out in this open road, as it were. That really stuck out to me, that line. That felt like a really layered statement to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was basically it. It was mostly this conversation.
Other than the bit at the end where he gets called away.
Yes.
And the scientist is like, his plans are working. It's activated something. I'm wondering, is this like, a protomolecule structure like, we had on the planet in season 4?
I think the most likely outcome is that this is Marco's thing that they've been building, assuming it's set at the same time. That's what's been successful, but it could really be anything if it isn't that. It could be a protomolecule thing. It could be something to terraform the planet, because they've mentioned multiple times that everything here that's grown can't be used for them, right? They have to use their own supplies. But that does suggest, though, what happens to all the natural wildlife on this planet if you alter it to work for humans?
Right.
Questions will be raised. So interesting stuff, as all this has been, but we'll leave that there for now. Rest of the episode, we dart around most of the main characters, as we have been doing, and there's I think the first big thing is the torpedo that was disarmed by Holden is brought up. It's discovered quite quickly by Peaches, and Amos finds out. And do you know what? I felt a little tense because it's clear that he's about to bring it up when they're outside the ship, on the exterior in the vacuum, and I'm like, I don't think, I'm not actually seriously considering that Amos might kick him off the ship, but this is definitely the most vulnerable place he could ask him this question and bring this up. Almost like it's like, no, we're out here, there's no distractions, it's just you and me.
I think I would have felt that had Amos been the one to bring it up. But Holden is the one that's like, hey, Amos, what's bothering you? He's like, hey, you're even quieter than usual. Holden's the one who obviously doesn't bring up the subject itself, but, invites the discussion.
He can feel the tension. There's a bit of tension. He can sense it. And Amos, much. I mean, obviously, it's not as dastardly, and everything about it is better than this example I'm giving you from last episode. But in a lot of ways, much like Philip calling out Marco's shit last episode, Amos kind of leans in and spouts some truths at Holden, and says, "Well, you're not explaining yourself and getting angry at me because you don't have an explanation." Is that why you're getting pissed? Because he says, "I don't have to give you an effing explanation." He pulls the captain card in a way that feels a little unholden.
Cheap. Yeah. He hasn't done it that often. Obviously, he has done it in the past, but usually with reasonable reason. And Amos is usually willing to go along with it. And technically, he does here as well. He's like, if you're going to pull rank, he will go along with it. But he actually, for one of the first times in the show, Amos actually wants explanations and answers beyond just direction.
Yeah, he's effectively challenging him in a way that he's not done in a long time, ever since he kind of like accepted Holden as captain. And this spirals into the scene with Naomi, which is just a cool little thing here before I get into the conversation. Like the gravity turns back on, and it just does it by, you see the light change on the wall, and just as it changes, the cup falls and she catches it. Like really, it was a really smooth little thing. I just liked it. But he comes in and Holden's like, I have to confess. I have to tell her that
it's something that, all right, enough for the crew know now. It's going to get out.
Yeah. So he tells her, and again, a very interesting discussion here that really builds on the characters and who they are and who they have been. And I'm not just talking about Naomi's like plight last season and all the shit she went through, which obviously is brought up. Holden brings all that up. You need to stop blaming yourself. You need to accept that your feelings matter, and it's okay that you feel like all these feelings from what you went through. But one of the big things that I really liked about the last season was when she kind of like made it very clear that Holden does let her make her own choices. He doesn't try to be controlling, and that's one of the things that she sees in him. And here, like, she kind of feels that him making this choice to disarm the bomb was him making a choice for her. And I think what's interesting here is I get why she sees it that way, but I also kind of like accept that Holden's like, well, no, part of this is still just about me. Like, I don't want to be the person who kills your son. Like, I can't be that. But she also fights back with, well, no, ultimately, like, I made a choice. I could have stayed and, like, been a martyr out of motherly love and, like, just accepted the fate. But she didn't, and that was a big character beat for Naomi last season. It was the idea that she accepted that she failed to, like, bring Philip Brown, to save Philip and save his soul, as it were. And she made the choice to then try and, like, do what she could to save other people afterwards. And it ultimately, eventually led to her getting rescued, but that wasn't necessarily her key goal. Her goal was to, like, warn other people of what they were doing and so on and so forth. It was a bit more noble than that. And she's like, don't take that away from me that I made that choice. Like, if he dies, I mean, it's not as cold as Ivan Drago. It's not if he dies, he dies. But that's effectively still the same thing she says.
It is. And that is the point of it. But I get it from Holden as well, where he's like, look, if he dies, he dies. That's fair enough. He's, chosen his side, but he doesn't want to be the one to do it.
Yeah, he can't live with that. And I think what's so great about this debate is that you understand both sides of this conversation. You completely understand where Naomi's coming from because of everything she's been through and the choices she's made, and that she has sort of built herself up to be willing to do it. But I think the follow-up scene to this, where, like, I think it's Draper's like just like, man, 1 in a billion, that stupid thing didn't go off, and she like storms out of the canteen.
She's like trying to work out, it's like 1 in a million for this, and then 1 in a million for that, and 1 in a million for that. What are the odds of that combined? And
Holden just has this look in his face, and Peach kind of admits that she knows, and it reveals that she actually was the first one to find out and told Amos about it. And great character work here, because she recognizes something in him that she can relate to, because she for a long time wanted to kill Holden, and then ultimately came to a point where she couldn't do it and decided against it, and says, hey, do you want to know when I decided not to kill you? And they find themselves relating in a weird way over this. But it boils down to her saying, never feel bad about not killing someone, because it doesn't matter like who they were. Some people I killed deserved it, a lot of them didn't. I still feel like shit over all of them. And I think reflecting that back into the scene with Naomi, if you take all these scenes together, you effectively have this like two sides of this like debate of like, did he do the right thing or not, and was this the right choice to make? And you can understand why Naomi and Amos like, no, he's done so many bad things, he's continuing to do so many bad things, and we know that he's planning something big. And so when Naomi said in the scene, like, whatever lives he takes now after this is going to be on me, because you made this choice for me, whether or not you agree with that part of it, like, we do expect that there's going to be more lives lost because they didn't take him out.
Oh, 100%.
So
that's a guarantee. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 2 episodes left still.
But I think this is the funny thing, is because we're both fans of superheroes, we're both fans of Batman, right? And the debate of Batman, should he just kill the Joker, comes up like an annoying amount.
A lot, yeah, right? more than it reasonably should. And
it's very frustrating because like, it's a big part of the character is that he doesn't kill. But I like bringing it up here in the context of this because I think we can relate to Holden wanting to not cross that line, because the idea of him trying to keep that part of himself like unscathed, I think appeals to, and it can appeal to anyone, but I think specifically we've got something that we can pull out and say, hey, we like this about these other characters, about these heroic characters. So I kind of, we can like and root for the idea of Holden fighting for that part of himself.
I'm not sure I actually agree that I feel that way.
Okay, go on.
Because I think Holden's killed people before, right? As a captain of this ship, they've killed others in the past.
He's killed people for sure, but like killing Naomi's son's like a.
But I think it's a very different thing for me, because for me it's not about making a choice for Naomi. I don't think.
No, I agree with that. I don't think it is either.
I think I understand why she sees it that way, but I think she's wrong. Although I do think it is obviously about her. I think it's more about the fear of, okay, she wakes up and looks at him and goes, "Oh, you're the one that killed my son," and it's that fear of losing her that's what's motivating it more than anything else. I think
that's a little bit two-dimensional, because I can see why you would say that, because he kind of effectively hits at that in the scene, but I think it's less a fear of losing her in the sense that he's worried she will look at him a different way, even though that might still be kind of partially there. I think it's more that he will not feel like he should have her. I feel like it's more about what he's going to feel about lying next to her, knowing what he did to her son. I know this is getting very layered and very complex to kind of like talk about but this is kind of why the writing's so good though, is because the characters are so layered at this point, is that we can kind of debate like the nuance of the motivations and the intents beyond just a simple A wants B to happen and that's it. It's that simple, because it's more complicated than that, I think. It is,
and I think I agree with where you're coming from with that motivation. I just don't think I agree with the comparison with the Batman Joker.
I'm not saying it's 1-to-1. I'm saying just in the context of comparing his side of the debate and the idea that even Peachy says don't feel bad about people you've not killed, and the idea that and even more so after all the people that Holden has had a part in killing, because they even bring up the end of season 3 when he says, maybe could we try something that isn't violence for a goddamn change. And he's like sort of feeling the weight of that, and he says, here we are, we're still trying to kill our way to a better tomorrow. Like, I think the weight of the people he's already killed is like almost what's bringing around like maybe this bigger determination to try and get away from that if he can, when it's possible. And it won't always be possible, of course. There's the show puts him into hard places where there is no other choice, but the idea of like trying to cling to that morality, I think is a very interesting part of the journey, especially this late on. That idea of not losing yourself and still being worthy of, it kind of feeds into almost what we were talking about last week with Avasarala and the choices about the series station of like okay, there's all the political side of it, sure, but like fundamentally, like is the right choice to try and help the people even if they don't want it, and what comes of that, so on. But
no, I'm with you on that.
But yeah, no, interesting stuff for sure. With all this. Fallout.
It's because this is a lower key episode than last week's for sure.
And there's a lot of repairing physically of the ship and stuff on both sides of the fight.
Yeah, but a lot of this is stuff that we expected after last week, and we talked about all this fallout from the missile in particular coming up. It's really great to actually watch it happen.
Yeah, if anything, I'm a little surprised it came up this quickly for the Rassi crew. I expected it to come up with Philip quite quickly, which it does, in the same episode. But I was expecting, like, I don't know, maybe Holden would admit it at a key point, later on when the stakes are high and something's going down. But no,
I think I prefer it this way. Not that that's necessarily a bad approach to do it, but it's very TV drama.
Oh,
right?
Sure. I wasn't complaining that it didn't do that. I was just like, I don't know. I figured it would remain holstered until it was needed for something. But this was a fine way to play it out. I think I really liked, like, I get why, okay, don't tell Bobby because she will probably just like try and kill him. But I think I like the reactions in that it didn't become like a huge fight per se. It just became a debate about the choice. And it's almost like Naomi and Holden are beyond just like like they yell a little bit in the scene, but it doesn't become this big fight where we're breaking up because you made this choice. Some contrived bullshit like that. It felt more like, no, you made this choice, so now, because that's the great thing is like Holden tries to convince himself with Amos, and the same way, and this is the thing, like he tries to do what Marcos kind of usually does, is he tries to convince himself of a certain thing, or even in this episode, Philip tries to convince himself of a certain thing by the end of the episode, and Amos calls him out on it, and he knows he's right, which is why in the very next scene we see him, he confesses to Naomi immediately. Like he knows he's in the wrong for not for the choice he made. He still believes in that, but he's in the wrong for concealing it and not trying to explain it and not
and keeping it from everyone else.
Yeah. So fascinating stuff. So yeah, to jump over to Philip and
oh man, this show, like, just it spends all episode going, yeah, not again. Not that I think Philip is redeemable, but it spends all episode telling me, no, he's got something there, that he's on the right path back towards something, vaguely good. And then by the end, it's like, nah, screw that again. It's so conflicting.
I wouldn't go as far as say screw that, because I think this scene at the end where he does kind of flip a little bit and gets angry at everyone in the canteen, I think this is what I just said actually, is him. He's trying so hard to convince himself, because effectively, so this message, we'll get to Drummer's stuff in a minute, but Drummer's message that she puts out where she says, I am publicly saying I am an enemy of Marcos, and like you can try and kill me, but F you, you're a traitor and a coward, you don't fight for the belt, you left him to die in your stupid own political war, blah 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 blah, right? And says all these things. And this is what causes Philip to freak out and say, no, this is a war, she's our enemy just like the Inner Tsar, and blah blah blah. The reason why he says that is because she is saying things that he's already thinking, and he's terrified that he feels that way. This is him trying to convince himself of what he's saying to everyone else.
Yes, but because I agree with all of that.
Yeah, okay.
But the end of the scene is he's marching off. He's determined. He's, I think, quite clearly going back to Mark and being like, right, it's time. Forget all this nonsense you've had me doing all episode. I'm coming back to command. I'm doing, I'm committing to the cause again. And even if it is out of a fear of he's having those same doubts,
no, he probably
the fact
is.
That he's committing even harder because of it.
No, he probably is. But here's the thing. I don't know if I'd describe that walk at the end as confident. I think you can see in his face when he walks out.
I said the word confident, did I?
Well, no. But you said he's determined, and I would argue that you mix in a little lack of confidence and determination feels a bit shakier. Anyway, the point I'm making though is that when he's walking down that hall, after he walks out the room, right, once there's no one looking at him, he looks kind of shaken. It's almost similar to when we saw Marcus go into his own room at the end of the last episode, where you can kind of see it in his face, the weight of like he looks vulnerable. He looks like, oh shit, like I don't know if I convinced myself. I don't know if it quite worked. Like, because he's done this in the past where he's sort of flipped himself to try and convince himself of what Marcos has been saying to him, of convincing himself of his own strength, of convincing himself that he's more important than someone else, which is particularly interesting in this episode because he spends a lot of it telling the other guy, no, you're in charge, this is your skiff, I don't know what my way around repairing the hull, so this is your job, you tell me what to do, you're in charge, right?
Yeah, he's very clearly intimidated by this high profile person being, suddenly he has to give him orders.
So he spends all episodes doing that. And I think what's interesting to me about the ending is that I don't think he's convinced himself enough this time. I think he walks out of that room and maybe he is going straight back to Marcos to say, no, I'm ready to take on important jobs again. I'm fully, behind you in the fight. But ultimately, I think this is all okay regardless of us debating the intricacies, because ultimately it's all about one moment where he chooses, right? Like, we can say that, he's working on the right path and he has these relapses, but the important thing is that there's going to be a choice, probably in episode 6.
Probably.
Where his choice is going to save other people, go against Marcos, or it's something along in those lines, whatever it may be.
And I think this moment, as much as I kind of agree with all the intricacies we just said, the reason why I come out of it going, oh no, he's kind of lost it again here. And yes, I definitely think there is a moment coming up that he will have to make a final decision. Up until this point, I was fairly sure that he'll make the right call in the end, and he'll be on the good side in the same way that Peaches is now.
Oh, you thought it was going to be the tragic ending where he makes the wrong choice.
Yeah, after this moment, this buckling in and like determined to do the not right thing, but the way he sees it as committing to the cause and being the right the good son. I think this might have been the moment where he committed to that. Even if there's still that final choice still to come, I think this was the moment for me where he might have committed to it.
I don't disagree that the show has the balls to do the tragic ending with him. I don't think I agree. I felt that this is the moment he committed to the wrong path. I don't at all. I saw too much hesitation on his face when he walked out of that room that I think, like, it can still go bad. Like, I can still see him like doubling down after this to try and convince himself that he does end up making like a horrific choice at some point in the next 2 episodes. But I don't think I'm convinced that this was the moment where he committed to the wrong path.
Again, okay, I could be completely wrong, obviously. Willing to accept that, yeah, hey, he might make the right choice in the end, and I'll be wrong, and I'll still very much enjoy that moment because it'll be a relief, right? I think there's too much in this episode that's not necessarily to do with him that makes me think this was that moment. We just talked about how don't regret the lives you didn't take, and there's a moment with Philip where he's kind of called out for feeling guilty / remorseful maybe for the friend that he shot, but there's too much where he feels feels guilt over those actions that he did do, but he hasn't had a moment like Holden where he's chosen mercy, so to speak, right? And I feel like he's not going to get that chance anymore. I think it parallels too much for me to have him go down the wrong way and kind of end that way now.
So you're convinced he's having a tragic ending? That's what you're saying?
I am. But again, could be wrong. But there's just enough little things in this episode now that make me think that's the case.
I'm not convinced. And for the record, when I say tragic ending, I mean, like, because I could see him making the right choice and then still dying, which I guess you could still call tragic. I don't mean that. I mean just he makes the wrong choice. He goes out a villain.
That's kind of what I was agreeing with there when I said tragic. Because obviously, yes, if he makes the right choice and it's a sacrifice on his part, that's still tragic as well, but not the same tragedy that we are.
Yes, that's a heroic tragedy, if you will.
Yeah. I think we were both on the same page. We were just clarifying it.
Yes.
But yeah.
Redemptive tragedy, I suppose, maybe was a better way of putting that rather than heroic. But I mean, I could see it going down the bad way, but I'm not convinced that that's where it's going. So if he does have the redemptive choice that I think he's going to get, I now get to rub it in because you have so adamantly put your foot in the other camp.
I already said I'm very possibly wrong. Because, as much as I do think it's going that way, I'm not like going to put money on it.
Good, because you'd probably lose. But yeah, there's a lot of little things here to mention. He is aware of the warhead. He knows, like they don't know for sure, but the guy who looks over the warhead for them is like, yeah, like someone disarmed this. That's really the only. But it's like that doesn't make sense. So it must have been a malfunction. Like that, they sort of just wave it off. But that seed's in there. That seed.
Philip knows this, but I don't think this has been passed on up the chain yet.
Possibly not. I think where this might be important is that if someone from the Rassi mentions that Holden made the choice not to kill him, Philip will know it's true because he has enough information from his side to like sort of confirm it. He'll have the corroboration if it's brought up. I don't know if it will be, but like now that he has this, I feel like that's why he knows this, because
I think the fact that both sides know this information now means it will come up again.
Yeah, I can see that. But I actually really enjoyed them bonding with the other guy. I thought they did a good job of making me care about this guy, despite the fact that he's basically just like a fairly minor character. But him talking about his brother, I thought was quite interesting because he mentions his brother can't leave Ceres because he's got a condition, and I'm like, oh, what's this? Because Philip's almost ready to make fun. What is he, even a belter? And he just says, oh, he's got vertigo. I'm like, oh, it's just a normal thing. It's a normal thing, but it makes going out in a spacesuit trouble.
I get it for a belter. That is like a significantly, it's essentially a pretty hefty disability compared to someone on Earth, having vertigo.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's unfortunate, but you can kind of like navigate around it for the most part. As far as I know, I don't know anyone with vertigo, but I think it's not. There's certain things you avoid doing, but for the most part,
but it's not as debilitating to your way of life as it would be as a belter.
Yeah, for a belter, so it's an interesting thing that something that feels like not as big a deal, relatively speaking, on Earth, but as a belter, like I don't know, it's a lot more like, I mean, I don't want to say losing a limb because someone loses a limb in this episode, but
no, but I get it. It kind of is because two belters, spacewalks and stuff. I'm sure they do them from such a young age. It's second nature to them all. It is as simple as just as walking from one place to another to them.
This is not something that has to ever come up again. This was a really good example of just a small little mythology tidbit they could just slide into a scene, and it makes sense and works with everything they've built.
Yeah, and then on top of that, boosting it with the sympathy of everything that's going on in the series as well right now, just to link those threads together neatly.
Yeah, and this is the thing. This could have been slipped in season 1. It could have been slipped in season 3. It could have been slipped in here a couple of episodes from the end. Like, it doesn't matter where it slipped in. It made sense no matter where you slipped it in. I'm sure there was numerous things like this that were slipped in early on to like give us the idea of what being a belter was, and this is just an extra little one.
It's funny because obviously there's the propaganda films being made right now, right? In the show, about series, for example, the one we see at the end of this episode. And this story is almost the writers doing a propaganda story on us, the audience, in a lot of the same ways. It's using the same techniques of, okay, yes, sure, there's a big tragedy on series, but we need to focus on one person. Okay, and let's focus on this person, this random guy's brother. And let's make the brother, let's put him in a already bad situation. And it's like the old cat man that we see on the actual propaganda video, right? And again, it's like, okay, it's just bringing it down to the human level for an audience, and obviously by extension, Philip.
I mean, this is a weird comparison in a sense because what you're basically just describing is like storytelling and making someone sympathetic to the audience.
No, because he's not making this guy in particular sympathetic. It's not making the guy's brother sympathetic because sure we kind of care about them a little bit because of this story, but we don't care about them personally. It's more about driving home the series situation for us.
Sure, but no, my statement stands. It's still just storytelling. That's still just how you make a group of people sympathetic then, in that case.
Sure, but...
What you're really saying is that propaganda, in essence, is using storytelling mechanics to make you feel things for real people. So basically what I'm saying is that you've flipped you're comparing it the wrong way around. Like, propaganda is using storytelling techniques to work in a new sense.
My point was, I think it's very notable. As you say, you could slip this story in any episode or any season and it works. I think it's very notable they do it in this episode where we're doing the propaganda story as a plot line.
You can say there's parallels. You can say all these things. I'm just debating a little bit that, I would argue that the propaganda, in essence, is using storytelling, not only techniques, but also manipulations, if you want to call them that, which I don't think they're manipulations in a storytelling because it's a story, and the whole point is to like get feelings out of the audience. Like, that's what you're doing.
Which is a manipulation in itself.
It is, but I don't like using that word because it's not like manipulation implies, like it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have
It just has negative connotations.
Yeah, it has connotations. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to have like a negative intent. But you have a connotation because manipulation sounds like it's deceitful, and it's not deceitful.
No,
it's not deceitful at all. It's like a magic trick. It's not deceitful because it's a trick. You're there to enjoy the fact that you're being tricked. It's kind of the.
Oh, there's people who complain about
that. Well, there is, but that's because they're idiots and don't understand that. It's the people who go to see wrestling goes fake. They're like, well, yeah, it's a show.
It's all right. There was a new episode of Doctor Who this weekend for the New Year special. And there's obviously no spoilers, but there is elements that certain people on the internet do not like. So because they don't like those elements, they are choosing to target really stupid shit to tear the episode apart, such as, the Daleks don't hit them when they're running through a corridor. They just miss their shots. As if every movie in the world doesn't have villains miss the shots with their heroes.
Yeah, don't tell Star Wars fans this. It'll break the entire franchise.
I know, like, yeah, that's every film you've ever seen, basically.
Anyway, so yeah, all this bonding was fun stuff. And there was that scene with the second who has a couple of interesting beats in this. Yeah, she kind of like. I actually really like this where she sort of threw this because Philip gets all like, what would my father do if I shot you in the face? And she basically just describes what Philip did for the guy he shot, and like kind of throws it back in his face, and it shuts him right up. I enjoyed that. And then later on, though, she also goes back to Marcos, who at the start of the episode was basically, okay, we're going to space like the captains of those other ships that backed out of the fight, and says that if anyone tries to like argue in their behalf or try to convince us otherwise, space them too. And she sees that the people who he asked specifically to be spaced are spaced at the end of the episode, but when he asks, so someone asked for sympathy, do you space them too, right? It's like, no. And then sort of like says, well, no, because that makes you look weak, because it makes it look like this loss got to you, and you have to be strong, you have to be Marcos and Arrows, you have to blah blah blah, you have to be the Superman, right? And basically he gets all threatening, as we've seen before, but she kind of like makes it perfectly clear that she's really good at this and knows what she's talking about, and is helping maintain his image to the rest of the crew, that he is this deity for them to follow. And they end up drinking to kind of toast together after she admits what she wants upon victory, which is to be the captain of the behemoth, and which as he points out is like the crossroads of like the new frontier. It's where every ship goes through and checks in when they're going through the rings. So
yeah,
neat stuff.
No, really interesting scene, because I think as well, it's again, her actively going, no, I'm the only one left to call you out on this shit, because you've either gotten rid of everyone who was willing to, or they've already died. But her being this bold, I could see her at some point making a ploy to stab him in the back a little bit.
It wouldn't shock me. I would say that what I like about this is that Holden does have people to call him out on things, and they do in this episode. And while, yes, even he's guilty of reacting a little bit at first defensively, he ultimately doesn't take him that long to sort of, okay, I need to like handle this properly like an adult. Whereas here, Marcos, because at the start of the episode, he like his reaction to everything that just happens, space everyone who betrayed me, like everyone betrayed me, I'm done with this world, like he goes full Tommy Wiseau on everyone. I'm joking, I mean, obviously, but
that's one way of putting it, I suppose.
But he's like a petulant child who's like, nah, kill everyone who like upset me, and she's there to call him out on it. And it's the idea that there are parallels that you can see in how like him and Holden are reacting differently to certain things, but how there are like those temptations to react that way are still there in the good characters, because they are human nature to some extent. They are, they're always something you have to be aware of. They're always like urges you have to fight against. That's what makes you stronger for doing so, and to not just give in to the petty like angry reaction or so and so on. So I think that's an interesting like.
It is, and it's really showing this season how far gone Marco is, and not in the terms of just doing terrible stuff. Obviously, he's long far gone in that regard, but more his own emotional stability is kind of gone now. Because up until this season, don't get me wrong, he definitely had a temper and he reacted to things, but he came across still as a leader, right? He looked like the leader, and he had a fairly strong position, and that's why he has such a following. That has cracked a lot this season, and not just for us, the audience, but for other characters around him are seeing this facade being broken now.
In particular, the ones who are close to him, which are basically either ones he's already killed, or it's Philip and his new second. Those are the ones who are really noticing it.
They are, but even characters who were on the bridge, for example, last episode where he had this outburst with Philip, they all saw Marco lose his shit a little bit there. They're the illusion of Marco and his charisma, I think, is being lost. And I think that's why when Drummer kind of puts this message out at the end, I think that's why it's maybe going to have more of an impact than it would have done a few episodes ago.
Yeah. Obviously, her putting out that message is like a call to anyone in like not even just the Free Navy specifically, but just the belt, right? Anyone who is like, no, like we don't agree with the Free Navy, or we don't like what he's done. You have that going on, and I think it kind of puts Marcos on a bit of a timer. Like he's kind of like hoping that the Earth and Mars alliance will attack because he wants to use his like because he's got this ace in the hole, he believes, right? And we don't know exactly how powerful this thing is. We don't know how true this is, but he believes that he's got this ace in the hole, and he's confident about them coming to attack and the Free Navy winning because of it, because they rush in, which is exactly what the Martians want to do. And the Vassaral's like, no, that's stupid. He wants us to come in angry and half-cocked because that's how he's going to fight us. So we're not doing that. But
the Martians are willing to go in alone, and will they all get obliterated for their headstrong mistakes?
They might very well do. Yeah. It's actually really impressive to me now. The more we talk about this episode, how many little things in the different plots are kind of neatly feeding into other plots. Not just in the ways where there's like running themes, but just little plot details that are kind of like, oh, that's relevant to like what motivates this, and like maybe why he's so adamant about forcing them into this attack. Because it's like this won't work if he has to come out and fight a proper war, like in a traditional sense. He has to lure them in to this one game-changing thing that he's got, and maybe that works. He's convinced it is, but we'll see. So exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff, and all this is great. Drummer stuff really good too, because we don't see her for a lot of the episode, and then we it's like their attack on this depot, her and the other captain, and well, you can relate to this guy who loses an arm because you only have one arm that's working right now.
Yeah, I still have it.
Well, for now. I mean, they may have to amputate it if things go badly.
I'm sure it was considered.
But yeah, so they have a bit of a fight when they get in, but there's some fun stuff here because it's like the depot is basically just two swinging think of it as like shipping crate balls, and they're just sort of swinging, around as you would in space, and they basically just grapple onto one, which looks so. I'm not gonna lie, this looked painful when they sort of hit the metal.
It did, but it looked cool as shit as well.
Oh, it did look cool. But they go in, but there's some guards there waiting, and they lose the red shirt. The one that, because there's like, it's drummer, her second, and then the other captain guy, and then there's a fourth one. The fourth one dies because of course
someone has to.
But they take it then. But yeah, he gets his arm pinned, and they have to cut. And there's there's very few things where I have said since we switched to Amazon from Sci-Fi that I think are different because we've switched, but I do believe this was a little gorier than perhaps it would have been had they still been on Sci-Fi.
And because gory is not something I typically expect from this show.
No. Yeah.
So I was eating my dinner as this scene played out.
Lovely.
Which was I mean, honestly, it was actually fine. It doesn't actually bother me. But I know some people that would put off their food. But it was definitely gorier than I expected, which is why I was I'll eat my dinner with it.
They definitely sold me on how severe this was, and I loved was it Mikio, I think her name is, but like her like kissing him on the cheek and said, I love you and I'm sorry, and he's like, sorry for what? And then she just pulls out a knife, and I love how it cuts to the other captain and he's like, oh jeez, all right.
That was the one thing, was the reaction of the oh shit when they pull out the knife.
This is what it's gotten to. But yeah, now her like, I don't necessarily know if Drummer is going to end up aligning with like Avasarala and Earth or whatever. We've talked about how she's obviously going to be more open to some kind of working relationship at some point, presumably, but definitely this idea that there's a fragment of the belt now that are going to resist against Marcos is an interesting sort of caveat in his plans.
It is. I think she's far more likely to align with Earth after they are supplying humanitarian aid to Ceres.
Yeah.
Or at least they're trying to. Obviously, there's a bit of the start with Ceres not necessarily wanting the aid from Earth, or there's at least factions of them that don't.
Yeah, they're saying no, like we can't, like, because they're convinced that it is the Inners who caused the explosions, and we have no reason to not believe like the Earth guy who's like, no, this was like Belter tech that blew this up, because it felt like a dirty trick, because it always did.
It did. We always assumed that, and they're like, well, we can't just tell them that because they'll just claim it was a false flag operation. And, you planned it all anyway, and you're just trying to turn us against each other. There's no winning answer here.
Yeah, and of course, like Monica's like documenting all this, and the Earth guy's kind of like, no, but you're recording like all these dead bodies and shit. Stop this. And like she's like, no, like Avasarala said, I've got full access, and it's like the point of this, and this is what she brings up later when she's showing Avasarala the video, and it's just showing the Belter guy with the cat. And he's like helping people, and he's he's saying that Ceres is his home, and he's not like a Free Navy guy. He's not someone who would join the OPA. He's just like, no, I'm just sick of all this
random schlub on the street.
Yeah, I'm just sick of all this violence and hate. Like, can we just stop this? And it's like, what's neat about this is that Monica's saying, well, no, like, you want me to humanize like people on Earth and people on Mars, but like, it's equally important to humanize the belt to everyone else too. Like, so this is like, no, we all look equal here. We all look weak. We all look, like, and that was, I thought was really interesting. I thought that was quite effective, and it was, effective, and like, because it felt like if Avasarala, as much as she was saying this makes us look weak, I think she was kind of like feeling it as well as she was watching it. She was sort of feeling bad for this old guy.
And she hates that she was feeling bad for them, because she's like, I might have to go and kill a ton of them.
But it's that thing again where like you want the cooler heads to prevail and the right choices to be made, and the idea that like if Avasarala might go out of her way to help save these people on Ceres, even when they're like actively trying to like resist their help, just makes her a better person for it, even more so than it would have done otherwise. So no, really, again, all this stuff, it's all moving ahead, it's all spinning and being engaging, and they're all linking nicely together. We know that the Ras is on its way to Ceres. I mean, I'm flabbergasted at what we're going to do in 2 episodes, because that's all we have.
It feels like there's a lot to do, but at the same time, I can kind of see it. Like, okay, we have to have this confrontation in the final episode, and we have to have this conclusion reach, this stalemate reach between them somehow, right? Which all makes sense for the final episode, which kind of feels like, okay, we've got an episode spare to play with to kind of build up to that now.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking more in the space travel does not happen quickly. The fact that, the Ras is just on its way to Ceres, and we'll presumably get there next episode. If there's then going to be some sort of conflict, either in, beyond the rings or near the rings, or
we can skip some time. I don't mean like skip loads of time. We've done this before in the past where
I know, but
ships have just travelled. Nothing interesting happened on the journey.
I don't feel that this season though has broken its pacing as of yet. So we'll see. But yes, here's to more Expanse after Expanse finishes, whatever they may call it.
Keep expanding.
Yes, keep expanding. That's a good way of putting it. But yes, I mean, I think it says something. This was, effectively a quieter episode, but we've talked longer on this one, without getting into a tangent about it possibly continuing like we did last week. Quite easily without breaking a sweat, because there was just so many little details and so many like nuances to the character interactions and motivations.
And for as good as last week's was, because I still think I probably preferred last week's episode because it's that pulse racing action. That was a good 20-minute sequence, give or take, of that confrontation. Whereas this has a lot more smaller moving pieces to discuss. Whereas that, as exciting and fantastically well done as it was arguably more straightforward to talk about. Yeah.
So we'll see you next time for episode 5. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support everything we do financially, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv, and you can support us for as little as $1 per month. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?